Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT9, and BT9 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be looking at is going to be a new iteration on the ever infamous Security Control deck. So if you're unaware of what Security Control is, it's exactly as it sounds, where you're trying to control through your security. So you have lots of powerful removal type options and lots of powerful recovery type options to be able to control the opponent's field and maintain a healthy security as much as you possibly can. And as far as win conditions for the deck go, you're actually just going to try to do one of two things, which is either A, chip the opponent's security down just because you know you have recovery and the opponent doesn't, or B, try to stall out the game long enough to try to deck the opponent out, just because the opponent is going to be drawing more cards than you on average. So with all that being said and done, let's get into the actual deck profile. Starting with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Upamon. So Upamon is going to be one of the primary draw engines for the deck, just because it has this inheritable ability of when attacking once per turn. If we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to draw 1 card, which combos really nicely with our rookie for the deck, which is going to be 4 copies of Salamon. And Salamon, what's making this card so good from BT2 is the on-delete ability, where we get to recover 1 if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, which is the same type of condition as our Upamon. So between the two, we're going to Digivolve into Salamon in Raising, move it out, swing. While we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, we get to draw 1 card, chip the opponent, ideally Salamon's going to die, and recover us 1, making it just a really good combo pair low end for the deck to use. And then as far as our level 4s go, we're not running any because we don't need any, because we're actually going to be hard playing our level 5s. So the first level 5 I'm going to be running is going to be 4 copies of MagnaAngemon. So even though it does cost 7 to hard play, that's okay, because we have alternative ways to be able to play this card and make this card a little bit cheaper and more effective and efficient to use. And the on-play ability we're trying to gain out of this card is the ability to recover 1. So again, the name of the game is just trying to maintain our security as best as we possibly can, and MagnaAngemon accomplishes that goal beautifully. Then it also has a nice inheritable ability for our higher stages to use, where this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP for every 3 cards in our security. So if we have lots of cards in our security, it makes our level 6s a little bit stronger. And then the only other level 5 I'm going to be running is going to be 3 copies of Angewomon. So this is the starter deck version of Angewomon from the Mastimon starter deck, and what's making this card so good is it has some similar combo plays and potential to our MagnaAngemon. It's just a little bit cheaper, but the effect is a little bit different, where its on-play ability states that one of the opponent's Digimon gets security attack -2, so it's not recovering us, but it's still helping maintain our security as best as we possibly can by taking the opponent's ability to actually deal damage away. And then on top of that, she has a nice inheritable ability for our higher stages to use as well, where while we have a purple Digimon in play, then this Digimon gains security attack +1 to try to actually deal a little bit more damage than what the opponent might be expecting from this style of deck. And one of the best level 6s for us to use it in combination with all of our other parts and pieces is going to be 2 copies of Ophanimon Falldown mode. So even though we're not digivolving Ophanimon Falldown mode on top of another Ophanimon, it's still just a very powerful card to use for both of its abilities. So its when digivolving ability states that if we have a purple Digimon in its Digivolution source, we get to delete one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, which is pretty decent, but we're not running any purple Digimon to use in its inheritables, and instead we're trying to go for the second part of its ability, where if we have a yellow Digimon in its Digivolution source, then we get to recover 1, acting as some more generic recovery to try to maintain a healthy security. Then she has a nice on-delete ability that's helping keep up the pressure on the opponent, where we get to play 1 purple or yellow level 4 or lower Digimon from our trash for free. So this is a good card to combo with our Salamon to be able to reuse our Salamon to add some constant pressure for the opponent and try to help keep our security as full as we possibly can. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of AvengeKidmon. So AvengeKidmon is going to be acting as the reset button for the deck, just because we're playing with lots of options, and this card is a good level 6 that can make himself cheaper to hard play. So what's allowing us to do that is when we play this card from our hand, we get to reduce the memory cost of this card by 1 for each option in yours and your opponent's trashes. So just for us utilizing lots of our cards, and the longer the game goes, the cheaper this card will be to want to hard play to make him a very effective level 6 to be using. And we want to use him because of his on-play ability, where we get to return all cards with 3 Musketeers in their traits and all options from both players' trashes to the bottom of their decks. And if 7 or more cards were returned this way, then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 3 Musketeers in its traits, or Digimon with 8,000 DP or less. So it's acting as some good control on most level 5s, and help refresh our deck with our options to be able to reuse them later to help with that stall type tactic. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Sakuyamon. So this kind of is a tech or flex spot for the deck, and I'm using this just because we're in a OTK based meta or a high damage meta, and this card helps prevent a lot of damage possibilities and potential. So what this card is doing is it states that during the opponent's turn, when the opponent moves a Digimon from their raising area to the battle area, then that Digimon gets security attack -3. So it kind of turns off at building a whole stack in your raising, moving it out, and trying to kill the opponent that way, which, again, the name of the game is to try to control and limit some of the opponent's actions. And then on top of that, it has a nice upside for it just sitting passively on the field, where during your turn, all of your opponent's security Digimon get -3,000 DP, so it makes our cards have an easier chance of living and having some decent chip potential just because of this debuff on the opponent's security Digimon. And then the last Digimon and only level 7 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Dexmon. So Dexmon is an absolutely insane control tool for this style of deck to use, just because, again, we're not necessarily trying to Digivolve up into it, and it's another really powerful card for us to hard play super easily and efficiently. So it has a nice ability where we get to reduce the play cost of this card by 3 for each one of the opponent's Digimon and Tamers in play. So if they have a wide field of Digimon and Tamers, then this is going to be a super efficient card to be used because of its on-play/when Digivolving ability to de-Digivolve 1 on all of the opponent's Digimon and then delete all of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. So it's just acting as a mini board nuke to try to clean up some of the opponent's threats that they have on the field for those go-wide strategies. Then on top of that, it has some good recursive removal, where at the end of the opponent's turn, once per turn, we get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost, so if there's only one thing on their field, it's always going to delete that one thing, forcing them to try to make some bad plays to try to keep their slightly stronger Digimon alive and not affected by Dexmon's ability. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Flame Hellscythe. So this is one of the best options to use in combination with our level 5s just because of how this card wants to work. So it is a 2-color option, so we do have to have both purple and yellow present on the field in order to utilize this card, which isn't hard based on some of our other cards. And what this card is doing is it allows us to have one of the opponent's Digimon get -6,000 DP for the turn, so potentially deleting some weak level 5s and below, on top of the fact that we get to play one yellow or purple Digimon with 6,000 DP or less from our trash for free, which allows us to pick and choose our level 5s or even our level 3 if we really wanted to be able to use for their on-play abilities. And then what's making this card extra good is the fact that it has a nice security ability to activate its main, potentially allowing us to go 3 for 1 in terms of card value and advantage. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Blade of the True. So Blade of the True is going to be the other draw engine for the deck, just because it has this main ability where we get to draw 1 card for every 2 cards in our security. So potentially we're going to be drawing 2 to 3 cards off of this card on average, which is just pretty good for 2 memory. Then it has the nice security ability of activating its main, so even on our security, we still can try to draw some extra cards. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Holy Wave. So Holy Wave is just more recovery for the deck to use because its main ability states that we get to recover 1, and its security ability states that we also get to recover 1 to try to keep our security as healthy as we possibly can via option this time. Next, I'm going to be running one copy of Reinforcing Memory Boost because we can only run one because of the limitation placed on this card, because this card is just that good. So this card is acting basically like Holy Wave on steroids, where its main ability states we get to reveal the top 2 cards of our deck, place one of them face down on the top of our security stack, and the other goes into our hand. So it's not only just recovering us one, it's selectively recovering us one, and adding a card into our hand, thus replacing itself in terms of card advantage. And then after this card is used up, it goes into the battle area for its delay ability, and its delay ability is really good just because we get to gain 3 memory at a later turn, which just makes this card super valuable in terms of tempo and efficiency on trying to maintain our security. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Wyvern's Breath. So Wyvern's Breath is going to be the big yellow removal card for the deck, where its main ability states that we get to have one of the opponent's Digimon get minus 15,000 DP for the turn, which is going to be able to delete most Digimon in the game, if not weaken them to the point where maybe our security can help finish them off with some extra DP minuses, or the Digimon that they're going to be hitting is going to be bigger than them because of the debuff that we just placed on them. Then its security ability activates its main, so again, it's one of the primary security threats we want to see to try to remove and control the opponent's Digimon. But our main removal option for the deck is actually going to be 4 copies of Chaos Degradation. So Chaos Degradation, what's making this card so good is the fact that it could bypass a lot of forms of protection that the opponent's Digimon might have. So we get to place one of the opponent's Digimon face down at the top or bottom of their security stack. Then if we do, we get to trash the top card of the opponent's security stack. So ideally, we're going to put their Digimon to the bottom of their security stack, then trash the top, so that way we could try to get rid of one of their security threats as well, knowing what that card that we placed to the bottom is. Then it has the security ability where we get to place one of the opponent's Digimon face down at the top or bottom of their security stack, so even though we don't get the burn effect off of this card's security effect, just the fact that we get to remove one of the opponent's Digimon is the core purpose and intention of this card. And then as far as our tamers are concerned, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Mimi. So this is the BT3 version of Mimi, and this card is just good to use with our options because it helps make our options more efficient to use, and it also could be used to make the opponent's options less efficient to use. So it has the All Turns ability, where when a player plays an option card, we get to suspend this tamer to gain a memory. So ideally, we're going to use this card with a whole bunch of Mimis on our field to make our options cost less than they normally would, to make them even more efficient, so that way we're not passing over as much memory onto the opponent as we possibly can, on top of the fact that this is going to be a really cheap tamer to hard play that's also counting as our purple source for our yellow-purple options to use. And speaking of tempo, next I'm going to be running 3 copies of Kari Kamiya. So Kari Kamiya is another cheap and efficient purple tamer for us to use for our purple source, on top of the fact that it can help anto-tempo the opponent alternatively like our Mimi could. So instead of interacting with our options, Kari is interacting with the fact that during all turns, when your security is reduced, then we get to suspend this tamer to gain a memory, basically taxing their attacks and making them less efficient, so that way we could try to buy some time to be able to control their Digimon and their field. And then the last tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Kari Kamiya. So Kari Kamiya is another really decent card for the deck, not only acting as the memory fixing tamer for the deck, so if our memory is ever less than 3, she'll just always hard set us to 3 to try to make our plays as efficient as we possibly can. But on top of that, she has some pretty decent combo potential with a lot of our recovery abilities, making them cheaper and efficient to use, because during your turn, when a card is added into our security stack, then we can suspend this tamer to gain a memory. So we have lots of different ways to be able to gain some memory to be able to make our cards as cheap and efficient as we can possibly make them, for them ordinarily being relatively expensive. And then there's just a whole bunch of different ways that we could approach the deck, all depending on the different types of color splashes that we're thinking about utilizing and the different control type tools that we want to incorporate. So as far as some good splashes go, we could think about splashing red for Crimson Blaze as a nice board wipe on top of stopping the opponent from playing their Digimon by effects. And we have Guilmon and Gigimon as a good combo pair to help us draw some extra cards with. Then we do have Sunrise Buster as a good good red-yellow option card to not only help play our tamers more efficiently, but to try to remove the opponent's Digimon as well. And a good combo card to pair off with it is going to be Tai and Kari Kamiya, so that way we could alternatively gain memory for different security counts, on top of the fact that it could help debuff the opponent's security, making our higher level Digimon easier to swing with. Then, if we wanted to, we could also think about splashing in Angewomon Crimson mode to pair off with our AvengeKidmon, just because we could hard play our AvengeKidmon, and then go into a Angewomon Crimson mode, acting as an alternative win condition for the deck. Then, as far as other yellow cards go, if you don't necessarily feel like you want to run Upamon as a good draw engine, we could run Viximon instead, just because Viximon draws us cards for the active playing options that cost 2 or more, which is, well, the majority of our options already, and we even have the Promo Patamon as a good alternative rookie to try to help us with our recovery gameplay. Then we do have an alternative level 5 for us to use in the form of MagnaAngemon Vicious mode to try to help control the opponent's field, as well as being a 2-color Digimon to use with some of our yellow-purple synergy. And speaking of yellow-purple synergy, we even have Junimon as a good card to help self-mill us to make AvengeKidmon a little bit more playable, on top of it being able to grab back any card from our trash, which is super valuable, even the cards that we normally wouldn't have access to before. Then, in terms of reusing some of our cards, we do have Matt Ishida as a good alternative memory-fixing tamer to help grab back our options to then reuse our options. And we even have Sora and Mimi to gain us some additional memory alternatively for the opponent not having low-level Digimon on their field, on top of having some nice cycling, so that way we could try to find the parts and pieces and cards that we need to see. And then as far as some good purple removal options go, we have Fly Bullet as a good single target removal for level 6 and lower Digimon, and Schwartz Lizard just because we're already playing lots of tamers, so this could be a good board wipe for anything that's level 5 or below. Then we do have green we could think about dipping into, just because we do have a yellow-green tamer to help us gain some memory alternatively and to try to help control the opponent's field as well. And we do have Ground Fang currently as one of the best removal options to pair with it, that could possibly not only get rid of the opponent's big Digimon, but could also get rid of some of their tamers as well. Then we do have black we could splash into and use some good black tamers like Izzy and Joe to gain some memory and try to fix the top of our deck. And we do have some really good black removal options in the form of Ultimate Flare and Iron Fisted Onslaught to try to deal with the opponent's threats. And we even have some Omnimons we could think about running, just because, well, Omnimons are still pretty good in the form of Zwart Defeat, acting as a good security threat to just spawn a free level 7, which is always pretty good, on top of using him for his when Digivolving ability and on delete ability to help control and maintain the opponent's field, with Omnimon Merciful mode as another Omnimon we could possibly use, just because it's an Omnimon we could use off of Zwart Defeat, and it's an Omnimon we could use off of our yellow Digimon as well, to try to help it burn and control the opponent's security and trash as well. And there's still just a whole bunch of other options that I didn't even cover to all think about to make security control a very highly customizable deck depending on the meta that you're facing. But for the most part, this is just my core or shell on what I think that security control is going to be looking like, and I think that security control is still going to be a pretty decent deck just because it's one of the few control decks we have left, on top of the fact that it actually does have the different tech and tools to be able to handle various different metas and various different situations that you're going to be going up against and could possibly be facing. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.